It's a beautiful bacon day, Cookie Crusaders. Today we're going to be talking about Pinecone Cookie and a few other feature updates. So with Pinecone, there's a couple different ways to run. You can either run a high cooldown focus with good damage resistance, or a good attack focus with good damage resistance. Either are going to be pretty suitable in a lot of situations. Please don't get confused when it comes to the ability of Pinecone. A lot of people were initially thinking, oh, Pinecone's going to specifically only synergize with Frost Queen, or with Snow Queen, or with Sherbet Cookie. I don't know why I said sorbet. Sherbet Cookie. And yes, of course, there is a slight increase of damage and stun for using the Frost Cookies alongside of Pinecone, but really I believe that's more of a setup ability in the future for setting up specific synergies and teams. Right now, I don't believe it fits into the current meta as a full stackable team, as I tried a few good combinations and nothing really panned out to be super strong. Pinecone themselves is already a strong team setup, but really if you take it in and you run Pinecone with other stun cookies, that's where you can get some pretty good advantages, because it's more about stunning the team down and making them unable to act against you. In addition, if they are stun immune, you're going to have a high advantage as well. So that's really what's going to be a big help when you're using Pinecone, is that you're actually using Pinecone as a pseudo tank. As you can see, we have Financier Cookie in this team, and they're third in position because we have Wildberry and Pinecone in the front dealing quite a lot of damage. And if we look at the statistics here, Pinecone did 2 million, getting the attack boost from Financier, having a lot of frontal damage with the fact that it's a bomber cookie, so that means it's dealing explosive damage, and it's ignoring 25% of the damage resistance on the enemy teams. So that's a really good thing that's happening and really powerful. Another way to set it up is that you can use Black Pearl alongside Pinecone, because Black Pearl also has a damage resistance ignorance. So because of that, we're going to be dealing quite a lot of damage to many different cookies, and it's going to be pretty powerful overall. So let's show you what a team like that can do. And it's pretty good. Like, Pinecone itself, overall, pretty viable cookie in a lot of modes. We can definitely test out the capabilities of Pinecone in the guild battles, in fighting some of the other monsters. I think Pinecone actually might do a pretty good job against the Abyss. Definitely won't be useful at all against the Avatar, since it creates debuffs, and that means that you'll instant wipe the team. There will be reflection damage against the Red Velvet Dragons, so I don't know if Pinecone would really work out there for that reason. And as you can see here, this was a good battle example. Even though Black Pearl works in tandem similar to how Pinecone works, Pinecone could not stand up to the overwhelming force of Caviar and Black Pearl together. They're a really good combo team, and they take out some pretty high health and pretty high defensive characters. Pinecone's a pretty high health, pretty defensive character. As you could see, not a lot of healing done to self, not a lot of damage done either. Pinecone really didn't get to shine too much in that situation. So you really kind of have to build the team with most of the focus towards Pinecone specifically. You can combine with a Frost Cookie and try to set up something like that. It's not going to work amazingly. Honestly, you're going to probably want to run Cream Unicorn, so that way you can have the damage resistance as well as the critical resistance. And if you do that, I recommend actually running attack so that you're getting out the most damage, and try to have the most defense and damage resistance set up on the team to give you kind of the best position. So let's show you what happens when you run it with a Frost Cookie. Now, Cream Unicorn giving that damage resistance, giving that critical resistance, that's going to be a big deal. We're running 2 healers. That's kind of the current norm, is running a double healer team. There's not a lot of teams that can run 1 healer and work really well currently, unless you're running a very speed-focused team. But as you can see, even with 2 healers, we're taking quite a lot of damage, because that's the current meta, is either quite a lot of DPS units or double healers, kind of a stabilizing team. And so even this didn't really work out. And yes, even though extra damage to frosted units, Pinecone did do a little extra damage, but not enough to really make a huge difference. And as you could see, Sherbert was the main damage dealer of our team, but unable to be outclassing the enemy in their setup. So it really didn't work out in the same exact way for that reason. So my personal belief is that you have to run other stun cookies with Pinecone if you really want to have some good results. And you want to also not be getting stunned yourself if you can, so that you have the option to push through and deal quite a lot of damage. There's some other combinations you could run. Maybe the Halibarian Treasure, maybe the Speed Treasure, the Monocle for removing debuffs. All some pretty good options. As you can see though, we are going to change to the cooldown for the amount of attacks we want to push through. Wildberry being there, giving us more damage resistance, giving us another tank. We're just having a more protective team, a very high health team that can stabilize and kind of counter-attack against the enemy onslaughts, as you can see. And with the Halibarian Treasure, we're getting even more damage resistance. But as you can see, Pinecone still, it's a tough battle, tough setup. You got to really think about how the team is setting up and what you're fighting against. So the current meta, I don't think Pinecone can stand up very strong to the current meta. I don't think that it's going to be too viable in PvP right now. Definitely a great cookie. Definitely a very strong build and some fun situations you can put together. And you can get some very niche defensive teams with Pinecone. I'm not hating on Pinecone at all. I actually really like Pinecone. But I don't think it's going to be a meta game-breaking change team for right now. At least I haven't specifically found any combinations that are just blowing things out of the water. And if it is, it's because I'm running 4 other cookies that are guaranteed meta and just slotting in Pinecone to substitute for another cookie right now. So I don't really think that that's a viable meta shift where Sherbert was actually able to bring Frost Queen back and put in double healers again, running a team like this. This became viable because of Sherbert. So that was a bigger shift in comparison to just a one substitute cookie change out. Now, going to Licorice Cookie and the Magic Candy. So this Magic Candy, I'm sure you've read it. If you haven't, definitely take the time to. There's quite a lot of text. The main thing that's important is that the curse adds silence, and it also does the healing reduction. So those are really the two main things that's going to be happening with this Magic Candy, and those are going to be how that's affecting the enemy team. Interestingly enough, the way the Magic Candy works for Licorice really puts the summoner team back on the map with a full summoner team. You can run variations like Black Pearl instead of Pumpkin Pie, or Sherbert instead of Pumpkin Pie. If you want to run Carol for double healers, maybe a BTS cookie. There's actually quite a lot of options. And the summoner team, in my opinion, is still the most flexible team because you can still run quite a lot of unique setups that really balance and blend together for each other. So let's show you what happens with the summoners, though, against teams that would traditionally be a summoner counter team. I found some interesting wins today. Now, I'm sure there's going to be some teams that are just going to be stronger than I am, so we're not going to win them all. But you can see here, Caviar and Black Pearl, they are guaranteed anti-summoner teams. But with Licorice's new Magic Candy, look at how we just absolutely annihilate their team. Completely wrecking them. We even kept 4 of our summon unit cookies. I think that's insane. So, look at here. Licorice is not doing a huge amount of damage. That is not what's happening here. The Magic Candy itself is not really lending itself to create a OP DPS unit from Licorice. Instead, it's making Licorice a better utilitarian tool to aid the summoner's overall goal. And because Licorice is a summoner, it makes it so the pincushion affects the entire team instead of us having to sub in someone else, because Snow King is too slow. Snow King does not have a fast enough Cooldown does not have a fast enough skill effect, and it doesn't affect enough units when it comes to heavy tank teams and heavy healing teams. Because Licorice has a healing reduction, Pumpkin Pie has a healing reduction, Licorice has a defense reduction, Crunchy Chip has an attack speed reduction, Stun from Cotton Cookie. Like, as you can see, finally we have a team here that was able to kill it, but, you know, it's really able to versatility against a lot of other teams. And so the reason this team was able to beat us, they had 3 anti-summoner team units. And that's Eclair, Espresso, and Black Pearl. If they did not bring Eclair, I think we honestly could have taken that. Because their healing, it's pretty subpar overall. Because we did have that healing reduction. Espresso does an amazing job against summoners because of the silence ability. So, there are still teams that are going to beat it, and that's okay. That is okay, because there is no team that is perfect against every other team. So that's fine. We're not looking for that. I'm really just looking for, can you run the team in a high variety of situations and do a pretty good job? In some cases, yes. In some cases, not so much. So for this instance, Schwartz and Caviar, they are both anti-summoner units, same as Black Pearl. So, triple anti-summon unit team, it's going to take this out. Double or less, you have an amazing chance against them. If they only have 1, you are going to win. So if they're running Espresso, and they're running Caviar, or they're running Black Pearl, and they're running Eclair, or they're running Schwartz, those are going to be your biggest units to worry about when it comes to running summoners. Those are going to be the ones that are going to take you out if you try to battle them. So just be wary of that. If you want to run summoners, those are your main opponents that can beat you, at least in a fair fight of the same level of treasures. If you're higher treasure level, don't worry about it. You'll probably win. So keep that in mind as well. But I did want to cover Licorice's Magic Candy. It's pretty good. There are some other use cases that it can work in. I'm trying to work on those teams and develop those teams. They're pretty tough because the one I was thinking of doing, and I'm still unsure if it's really going to work, is because it's doing a defense reduction. I'm thinking about actually using Licorice, Caviar, where is it? Werewolf, Squid Ink, and T-Knight, and then kind of running a pseudo T-Knight team. Sorry, I'm trying to find where my Caviar is. Past him already. And then Squid Ink. I mean, you can run one healer if you want to run a BTS healer. You'll still probably want to consider the toppings and the treasures when it comes to this type of team. So we're going to run a Insignia, and we're going to run the Jelly Watch. And really here, if we're to run something like this, we want to think about the overall presence and timings when it comes to our team. So let's get some more tickets and show you. 1 second. We should have tickets down here. We do. Okay. So if we go down here, we won't fight that team. They're a little bit too weak. Here's a little bit more fair. So Werewolf dealing that incredible damage when everyone's pushed together. We've got Caviar doing defense reduction. Licorice doing defense reduction. Squid Ink taking huge advantage of that. BTS giving us some stun immunities for our team. Licorice providing extra bodies to get hit in the front. Werewolf pushing the units back so that their presence isn't too in our face. Squid Ink's able to teleport outside the battle arena, giving a little bit more protection. The Insignia doing a good job healing, but overall didn't do good enough. Maybe we should have run Monocle or Speed instead. Debatable which would have done better, but regardless, it was a good fight. It lasted almost the entire battle. If we look at the data, huge damage from Squid Ink and Caviar and Werewolf. Better damage from the Freeze team. Understandably, they stopped the skills. They have huge targeting attacks. Totally makes sense. So it really just comes down to that fact of what is meta, what's going on, what's working, what's available to be done. So that's that's what I'm thinking when it comes to Licorice right now. Is this is a team that I think would work with it later down the road when the meta is not what it is currently. It's not something that's going to really be working right now, but definitely something I'm keeping an eye on. Maybe Monocle would work better, maybe something else. And there are some other things too that are in consideration, but I'm really uncertain if they can pair up together. And so Pinecone and Affogato, interestingly enough, with 2 healers and a really powerful DPS unit. So specifically in this point, we know that Schwartz is a good DPS. If we put that together, we put speed together, and then we put revival together. Not actually worrying about cooldowns, because everyone's got a pretty fast cooldown. And we go ahead and look at that. We give Affogato high damage resistance and attack power when it comes to the crits, because the crit poison does a lot. The speed is going to specifically be affecting Schwartz here, and the other one we're going to be allowing it to affect is Affogato. So Affogato and Schwartz are going to be getting the speed buffs, and with both the bombers here doing pretty heavy damage, we might have some pretty interesting results. So let me show you what that is going on and what the thoughts are in my mind when it comes to that. So Schwartz giving those stuns, giving that initial setup. Pinecone and Affogato basically ruining the high-end players of the enemy team because they're targeting those specifically. We've got that feather for the revival because we're going to need it. As you can see, Pinecone still does take a beating. We've got Carol dealing great healing, BTS giving that stun immunities. We're pushing back and forth. It's definitely a close fight. And I think maybe a team like this would operate better in a setting where it's dealing more centralized focus, maybe one more DPS unit. As you can see here, like Carol heals amazing. Honestly, we can do let's do this as a single Carol healing team. And let's take a